Okay, so the manufactured home space used to be the affordable home option. Now we're talking about attainable housing. What's the difference? Well, there is a difference. And in today's conversation, we're going to get into that and some more and what you can do to be different and be able to garner more market share, which is what everybody's trying to do, right? So check out the episode. But before that, man, if you haven't yet, subscribe, like, and click on the notification bell so that you can be informed every time we got an episode. But check this out. Here we go. All right, folks, welcome. Welcome to Breaking the Stigma podcast. You've got Mr. Brian Hurd with Cardinal Financial right there in the dad den. I like that. I like that sign behind you, man. The dad
And
den.
no, I did not coordinate to wear the exact same clothing or at least color as you today. So it just kind of happened that way.
Great minds think alike.
Great
Yes,
minds.
yes. Well, I am not in the dad's den. I am actually on the road. I'm in Tyler, Texas, over at Mobile Home Masters, and you know, but we still got to make time to put this together and put it out
Yep.
because what we're doing, I believe, is, man, I don't know if you've paid attention, but I have, and people are watching these episodes and they're digging in. There's people that have been commenting. Some agree, some don't, but that's all right. That's
And
what
that's
it's about.
okay. Yeah, there's been a lot of good feedback.
Yeah.
A lot of people say, "Hey, can I come on and I want to join. I want to come and have those conversations." I know we're kind of calling it audible today. We had a scheduling conflict, but yeah, I mean, it's good to have this conversation, whether people agree with it or not. And I would say we throw that again. We've said it many times. Whether you agree with what we're saying, whether you have a counterpoint, whatever the case is, if you want to talk about it, come join us. The more people we have talking about this, sharing it, arguing it, debating, whatever, it's the better. Conversation is conversation, and the more of that we have, the better.
That's right. The dialogue is what's important so that we
Agreed.
can have the breakthroughs that we need to have. And I agree 100% with you on that. And I love it. I love what's going on, the momentum it's picking up. And it's just the fact that people in the industry are catching on and seeing it. And I think as we go along, right? This is, I think, what, the third episode. So as we go along, I really see it becoming something a lot more impactful, but not to say this isn't, right? And especially what we're talking about today. I think what we're going to get into today and is going to be something that will clear some things up for some folks, right?
Yep.
Both in and out of the industry, right? Because one of the things we talk about all the time, right, is the terminology even that we're using. How are we
Yeah.
speaking about the product, right? How are we speaking on different things? And one thing that I know is confusing for a lot of folks, for a long time, we were the affordable option, right?
Yep. Correct.
But
Yeah.
with what's been going on in the economy and with people and interest rates and all of these things that have affected housing, now we're starting to talk about attainable housing.
Yep.
And even I, for a while, was like, okay, well, what's the difference, right? So that's what we're going to break down, and I think no one better than you to be able to help us with that, since that's more on that what has to do with affordability and what's the difference, what are those programs, what does that look like,
Yep.
and why is our product attainable versus affordable, right?
Yeah, and it's a good intro. I think that, meaning, you, myself, anybody in the lending side, the sales side, all of that, we have our own little jargon that we speak, and we kind of tend to assume that everybody else understands what that means. Obviously, as you mentioned, the industry as a whole has been labeled. When I say the industry, I mean the manufactured home side. It's always, it's been called the savior of affordable housing, all of that kind of stuff. So the word affordability has been used for forever. It's become a buzzword, obviously, in the last 5 years. But what is affordability? I mean, that's the thing. Affordability, I think we kind of throw that out there without really realizing what it is. I mean, is anything truly affordable these days? And it's subjective, I guess, to what which market you're in, or obviously the difference in affordable for somebody making 50,000 a year and somebody $500,000 a year is very different. But yeah, I think attainable. It's a term that we've been using for years. I'm not saying we coined it by any means. I don't know who actually brought it up, but we've kind of switched to that a few years back. And I think at its base form, kind of as we were talking before we started recording, affordability, in its kind of legalese terms, I guess, if you will, is really subject to subsidies, housing subsidies, whether it's on the housing side, the financial side, that sort of thing. It's for below, kind of, barely in that kind of poverty area, so to speak. Whereas attainable housing really focuses on that missing middle, which is a term I know you've heard many times. I've heard many times. I think we all use it here and there. And it's for those individuals that they make too much for that subsidized housing. Their income is just too high. Yet unfortunately, it's too low for the housing product and the housing stock that's out there in the market these days. So what
Mhm.
do you do? I mean, what are these people going to do? They can't afford, or they make too much to get help from the government, state, local, federal, otherwise. But they don't make enough to walk into your traditional site built builder and buy a house. That's a really uncomfortable place to be. So what are they supposed to do? Are they relegated to renting? In some cases, that's the best option, whether you're in that missing middle or not. What do you do? And so I think that's where we as an industry, the manufactured side, are really focused on, is that missing middle, that attainable range. And I think the other thing to make sure people realize is that it's not cheap. We're not talking cheap housing. We're not talking, you know, product that doesn't have quality and integrity and all of that kind of stuff. So that's that's kind of my extrapolation of it. Though I think again it's a bit subjective. What is affordable, what is attainable. Um, I think we focus on that attainable range as much as we can. Certainly at Cardinal Financial, we focus on the ability to fund construction loans for those people that are looking for that product range that might not be as expensive as your typical site built stuff. So,
Got it. Hey, and now let
what's
me
your
ask,
thought?
because you're the numbers guy on this, right?
Yep.
You're the banking side, the finance side.
No hardballs.
Do you, and I'm not trying to put you on the spot here, right? It's just your business. Uh, what do you know what is the income level that disqualifies somebody from some of these programs or subsidies?
Yeah, I mean, I think your attain or your let's just say affordable housing first. Affordable housing is really up to 80% of adjusted median income, and then your attainable housing is somewhere between 80% and 120% of adjusted median income. So the challenge is, and don't quote me on that. I don't know that that's the exact figure, but I think that's generally, what if you were to go out and do a Google search and whatnot, what you'd find. Um, Challenge is an 80% or 120% of the AMI sounds okay. Well, they're doing fine. That's the crazy thing, is you still can't buy in a lot of markets a reasonable house, even if you're 120% of the adjusted median income. That's a
Yeah,
problem.
that's very true, and so if I now turn the conversation or kind of address the sales side of things, it's now as somebody selling the house, right? whether it's in the retail or in community space, whatever it may be, or with the builder developer. Like I mentioned at the beginning, I was one of those that always said we're the true affordable option, right?
Mhm.
And because
Yeah.
in my
I think we
mind,
are.
always,
Yeah.
even leading up to before 2022 when the rates started going up, we truly were affordable in the sense of it, we were that tier
Sure.
of home. Not so much we couldn't help anybody that maybe came in. We would get all the time, right? Hey, do you guys take Section 8 vouchers and things of that nature? Well, we can't. Unfortunately, we're not that product, right? But it was affordable as compared to site built.
Yep.
But now I see the difference in the shift, right? In how everything is working now. And where affordable is, yeah, man, my income, I'm single father or single mom. I've got my kids and we need a place, we need our home or an apartment
Yeah.
or whatever it may be, but I'm limited on income. Now I see where that has shifted now, where that's in the affordable housing sector, and we're more in that attainable because really, like I like to explain it to everybody in the industry is we're really competing now on pricing with site built homes. Yes, we're less, but what I mean when we're competing, I'm competing in the sense of if I'm going to get land and I'm going to do a house, 2,500 square foot home, manufactured home or mod,
Yeah.
and with land and full improvement package, I'm still overall about the same package price,
In a
depending on
lot of cases,
where,
that can be true. Yes.
you know,
You know,
so now it's that whole attainability, which and so I can see where now we need to really start focusing the conversation on that and being able to educate people on the differences.
correct. And I think that's, you and I, just like the rest of the industry and the media and whatnot, have really positioned everything as affordable, affordable, affordable. And I think you're right. I think in general, we're referencing this is more affordable than your traditional site built. I mean, the problem again is affordability is such a it's a difficult word to really apply because it's different for everybody. I mean, what's
Mhm.
affordable to you may be different than what's affordable to me, may be different that's affordable for a first-time home buyer. And I think that's where the area median, I think I called it adjusted median income, my mistake. But, if the AMIs really tell the story, that, I mean, where we are focused on, you and me, because we work with the manufactured housing industry. I think, I like that term, the missing middle, because I think that, we put a ton of focus on the unhoused. I mean, I guess you'd call it homelessness as well, but the unhoused and subsidized housing and all of that kind of great stuff, which is incredibly important. But again, I think we forget, and that's why they call it the missing middle or the forgotten middle. Those could be single parents, first time home buyers, could be any group of people that make, by all accounts, decent money, but they can't afford, especially now with high interest rates, they can't afford the traditional housing stock out there. So I do think that there's different segments to the manufactured housing world. You have your cross mod product, which that I would wager is less about attainable housing as an alternative to site built. We're talking phenomenal. I mean, these are incredible homes. That rival modular and site built, stick built.
Mhm.
That's a higher end product. But, when you're talking a very well built single wide or double wide product, that's really where that whole attainable market is focused on. And that's providing a very well built, very sturdy, energy efficient home for people that can't afford a site built. And in some cases, are they dramatically less cost? In some cases, yeah, but I think we're talking 20, 30, sometimes $40 a square foot less, which is not insubstantial. I think the challenge we have is that, we talk about the stigma that missing middle is massive. There's a lot of people in that particular area that need housing desperately, but they either never see it because the industry doesn't talk about it. You know, the broad housing market doesn't really talk about it. Realtors don't do a great job of it. You know, even lenders and whatnot, we don't really talk about it as much as we should. Um, but yeah, I mean, if I'm in that range, I need to know that a manufactured house is a home, you know, and I need to feel good about it. And I think that's where, again, conversations like, you know, podcasts like this are really important because these are people like you and I. I mean, I know I've been in a position where I couldn't afford a house. You
Mhm.
know, I mean, I think you have as well. I think a lot of us have. You know, by the grace of God, we've been blessed to be where we're at now. But finding housing right now, especially with interest rates really high, is difficult. You know, so I think we need to continue to push what is attainable housing and how do we build, sell, and finance more of it.
Yeah. By the way, when are you lowering those rates? I'm kidding.
I mean, if I had control or if I knew, you know, I would be incredibly wealthy man. But I mean, I think we have to face the fact that it may be a while, you know, and
Yeah.
I think that's where attainable housing becomes so critically important because, you know, a 40, 50, $60,000 reduction in the cost of a house that's really, really important. I mean, that can save hundreds of dollars a month, you know, which may very well be the difference between somebody fitting into a traditional mortgage or even a chattel mortgage or not and having to go rent. And again, I'm not knocking rent because for some people that just makes more sense. And there's
Right.
nothing wrong with that. But being in the mortgage industry, we want to find out. We want to know how do we help people get in homes and, you know, there's only so small a size you can build a stick built, you know, there's only so close together you can get them. So, you know, why not focus on that attainable housing range and specifically offsite, whether that's manufactured or modular?
Yeah, I was looking down because I was actually when you mentioned that the $60,000 difference, I pulled out my little mortgage calculator. I was running some numbers. 6.75% for 360 months. That's almost $400 a month. That's
It's not
sixty thousand
insubstantial. That's
dollar
a lot.
difference.
Yep.
That's a lot of
Yep.
money when you're
Yep.
talking about a first time home buyer to be able to save $400 a
Yes.
month on their
Yes.
mortgage
Big
is
difference, right?
huge.
Yep. Yep.
It's
Yep.
huge. You
Big
know,
difference.
uh, it doesn't buy you as much groceries as it used to, but $400 will take care, hopefully, of a week and a half, 2 weeks
I
worth
mean,
of.
that'll buy a few cartons of eggs. I mean, you know, it'll help. And I think it helps. I think first and foremost, it helps people qualify for homes they may not have otherwise qualified for. But then it may also mean the difference between not only qualifying, but having money left over for groceries, utilities, that sort of thing. That
Yeah.
makes a big, big difference.
It does. It does. And I know, I mean, I think back to growing up. I know it made a huge difference. I think even now, right? You mentioned, hey, we're at a different point in life and whatnot, but even starting this business, bootstrapping it to me right now, I'm looking for $400, but $400 is a lot.
I could use it. I could use it.
we we all could. And so when we stop to think about, okay, and I love the phrase missing middle, right?
Yeah.
And because we hinted at that, I think it was last week or in the initial
Yeah.
that we're looking at 20 plus million families that can't buy a site
You're
built
right.
home.
You're right. Yeah.
That's a lot.
It's a lot. Yeah.
That
And that's
is
just
a
families. I
lot.
mean, then you translates to, you know, 30, 40, some odd million people overall. You know,
Yeah.
I mean, that's a lot of people.
And that's where we go back to, okay, so why aren't we getting it? Why are we still at 8 to 10%? And look, affordable, attainable, I really don't care at right now
It
when we're
really
in
doesn't
the
matter
grand
what you want to
scheme of
call it. Yeah.
things.
Yeah. Yeah.
It it's more of you mentioned it just a little bit ago. I don't think that we yet still as an industry truly wrapped our head around it. the huge potential that is there to be
Yes,
able
yes, yes,
to help families gain
yes,
market share and at
yes.
the same time do very well for your company and for your people.
I love that you bring that up because look, I think that, you and myself, your organization, Cardinal Financial is, very supportive of attainable housing, and industry or organizations like Champion and Clayton and some of the most amazing people over there, very supportive of it from the humanity side of it, the human side of it, right? We want to help people get in homes, which is
Mhm.
exactly what these are. However, we're also in this to support our own families. And I think that, speaking directly to developers and builders and dealers and community operators and all that, that is a massive opportunity, massive opportunity that I don't think we talk a lot and we talk enough about. I mean, that's not going away anywhere. I think we talked about it previously that, that the deficit is anywhere from 3 to as high as 8 million. Again, depending on, which report you look to or subscribe to. But you can't deny that. I don't know what your number was. I think it was around 20 million. I think if we're around 15 to 20 million households that fit within that missing middle range, um, that's a lot of houses. It's a lot,
A lot.
and if manufactured housing is looked at as a real player, I mean, right now I think it's somewhere around 100,000. I think it's projected to be around 105, 110,000 manufactured homes this year. That's still a massive amount of people that need houses. And so, yeah, there's a huge opportunity there. And especially when you're talking about a product that can be done substantially quicker. If you're a developer, a community operator, whatnot, you can do one of these things. I mean, again, you are a dealer. I mean, it takes from the time you sign a contract until you time to give the client keys, what, 90 days?
Yeah.
Sometimes quicker, sometimes longer, but sometimes quicker. I mean, it's a pretty attractive product, pretty attractive option if I'm a home builder or a developer that wants to look at how else can I provide housing and how else can I actually make pretty good profit
Yeah.
on each house.
I was speaking to a group in Indiana this morning on a call that we were doing with them, and I like I brought out to them, and I'll put it out here for everybody that's watching. We don't get into sales to survive.
No,
Nobody
to get into
decides to
Thrive.
get it to take a sales career or job and say, "Hey, I want to take that position so I can
No.
just hopefully pay my bills."
Yep.
People, the whole idea of getting into sales is because we're thinking what we see out on
Yep.
TV and everything else, right? The nice house, the beautiful cars, the this and
Yep.
that. That's the
Yep.
aspirations. And so for us, especially being in housing, one of the three basic human needs or four basic human needs, right? Housing, food, clothing, shelter. And so for anyone to be in this industry and be struggling, just surviving and not thriving is truly a disservice to that individual. Now, I'm not saying that individual also plays a part, obviously, right? Because
Yeah.
maybe they're just not putting in the work. I don't care where you work. And I'm talking to anybody who's in sales right now that may be watching this right now. I don't care where you work and what the culture is like in the retail center that you're at. You still have control over the amount of activity and action and attitude that you put into the work because we just told you there's 20 million families out there that can't afford a site built home that would die to be able to buy something from you if you just educated them on the fact that the product is not an inferior quality. It is definitely something that would serve their home. And at the same time, it's going to save them 400, 500, however much compared to what they would have been paying had they bought a site built home in their
Yep.
market.
Yep.
So,
100%.
so nobody should be struggling. And the beautiful thing about it is you wouldn't be struggling, you'd be thriving and you're thriving because you're helping families. So there's nothing to feel bad about if you're bawling, stacking paper, whatever you want to refer to it as. The only reason you'd be doing that is because you're helping families.
Yep. Yep. Yep.
You
And
know,
I think that goes back to, again, the literally the name of this series is, it's dealing with the stigma. And I think that's the problem is, I think not only being able to change the hearts and minds of people that look at this product as inferior, or, it's cheap, or it's only for this certain type of person. I think we have to educate the general public that that's just not the case. But a huge part of it's educating ourselves and realizing that, you can't just, if you want to sell it the same way it's always been sold and try to sell it to the same people you've already always sold it to, well, then you may just survive. You probably do pretty well because the MH market in general is doing pretty darn well right now. But do you want to just do well or just get by, or do you want to thrive? And I think that's where, again, all of us on this side of the industry really need to do a better job of saying, hey, okay, well, we don't have to disrupt the way we've always done it. We don't have to disrupt it, the way we sell houses to, side of the freeway, that sort of thing. But how do we reach a broader audience? How do we position ourselves? I love that you've talked about this on the last several calls. You talk about making an experience, you know. Um, how do we normalize the way these homes are sold rather than kind of that old approach that makes it feel like you're walking into a car dealership and you're buying a car? How do we make this experience feel comfortable? Because I think that's where the attainable buying population really wants to be. I think people want to feel like, well, I'm not buying an inferior product, so why should the process itself feel inferior, if that makes sense?
yeah, for sure. And that definitely is a huge part of it, right? And so when we really stop to think about it, we should be more proud, if you will, for what we do, for the
Yes,
product. You should
100%.
feel like a true resource to people.
Yeah,
And when we start
love
to
that.
shift, that's why I tell everybody, so I preach this. It doesn't matter what kind of skill I have on the phone in my marketing. It doesn't matter how well I can speak to people when they're in front of me. If my perspective on what I do is not where it needs to be, I'm always going to be 8 to 10%. That's it. That's what I'm going to be. So
Yeah.
we need to do a better job of casting the vision and understanding that we have to go after that missing middle to help them. It's not for anything else but to help them to provide the solution that we are, that we know we are, that we scream from everywhere saying, we
Yep.
are the answer for you, but understanding the difference, right? Carry
Yeah.
ourselves differently and be different. Educate people. There's clients that of ours. One of the things that we talk about all the time and work with them on is, what is your messaging in your marketing? Are you just like everybody else talking about the 20, 30, $40,000 discount on the lot model, or are you educating people with your marketing? And
Yep.
Gary Vee has the whole, jab, 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 right hook, right?
Yep.
Give, give,
Yep.
give,
Yep.
then you put out a house. Give, 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 then you advertise a house. But when you just, I mean, it's
I
incredible.
think you reach a much bigger market. I think we all find that, again, we have to adapt the way we sell, the way we talk about it, all of that. And sometimes that's scary. Change can be scary. But if you look at it, how much more of an audience could you be reaching if you stop treating it like a car or something like that? And I want to go back to something you said. You said, this is something that we need to be proud of. And I'll admit, and I've tried to be very transparent since we started the series. I think you know that as you've gotten to know me. I've had my own journey in the manufactured space. I freely admit that prior to 2020, my perception was dramatically different. I always treated, oh, that's just it's what you see on TV and the movies, and shows like Breaking Bad and all that. That's what these are, mobile homes. I admit it. I was ignorant to it. I was part of the problem, and it's taken me a while. It's taken me really the last 5 years to completely change my way of thinking. But even then, even as I was well down that path, Cesar, I struggled with being proud and shouting it from the rooftops that I am a true advocate for offsite construction and manufactured housing. And I think I've finally gotten to that point, because you realize, you know what? And I think it's taken support and guidance from people like you, people like Andrew Bryan at Clayton, tremendous advocate for this product. Natalie Roberts, who we'll have to have come on this call at some point. She's a huge advocate for attainable housing. And there's quite a few others out there, but I've learned through consistently working with people like y'all that this is a amazing product. This is a home first and foremost, and it's something that we should be incredibly proud of. I mean, we are, yes, we're using it to make money, of course. That's how we support and feed our families, and we want to be successful business people, of course. But the fact that we get to do that and help portion of that 15 to 20 million households out there, and why wouldn't you be proud of that? You know, why wouldn't you be passionate about it? So yeah, I think, and that's what I would love to do. I don't want to make it sound like, the industry's doing everything wrong, and they're bad and they need to change everything. My goal is, hey, if my mind was changed, if my perception was changed, if the stigma I had about it has changed, anybody can do it. I'm the son of a custom home builder. I've been around the stick built world all my life. This was a big change. If I can do it, anybody can. And I think
Yeah.
that's what we're trying to do here, which is amazing, and I need to be proud of it.
And one of the things that we also just have to keep in mind is, you know, I'm all about the numbers now. I look at the data. I look at which I go into a retail office or community, and we're diving into the numbers. What do the calls look like? How many tours are they giving if it's in a community, right? How many people are coming in, walking in the doors? And so when you apply it on a bigger, broader sense,
Hmm.
last year, 2024, there was a little over 103,000 manufactured homes built in all of last year. New, right? New construction of manufactured homes.
Yep. Sounds
Going to be
right.
about the same, 105, somewhere around there. And when you look at the amount of families that can't buy a site built home now,
Yep.
that is less. That is still less than, what is that? Less than 2% of the market. Okay. What we build is less than 2% of that number. And so the sales guy in me is the first thing that I go in and tell people is, look at everything that's available to you,
Yeah.
right? Because sometimes we get so caught in our little silos and thinking, well, I'm struggling now. How's it going to be any better? The rates are higher. It's just we're not doing everything we could be doing, like you said, to normalize it, educate people, get the word out about it to those folks that still maybe hadn't woken up to the idea of it yet, right? And
Yeah.
and so experience, the buying experience, the marketing, everything goes hand in hand. And so if anybody watching this right now, the one suggestion that I would give you from a sales guy is start working and becoming the educator. The
Mhm.
sale is the result. The sale is the result. That's not the end game.
Yeah.
Focus in on the steps that lead to that, and you'll get the result. And so what we need to focus on is educating first ourselves, right?
Yeah.
To have a better message, and then educate the masses. Be the source, the resource for people. right? I can't say it enough. I can't stress it enough. Become that, and you will see. There's a gentleman here at this office, been in the industry less than a year, never in the industry before. He is the one leading this location in volume of sales,
Why is
simply
that?
because
What do you think that is?
he carries out his business differently than the guys that have been doing it 4 or 5 years, because he wasn't exposed to all of that stuff. And he's trying to be the educator. He's trying to be the one that treats people differently. He's trying to be that guy. And it is paying off for him tremendously. And so it's not a one-off thing. It's what people want right now. It's what people need. We have
The
to
good
do
thing is, the good thing is it's getting a lot of attention, which is much needed and well overdue. There's a lot of legislation that's been passed recently, and a lot of it that's being worked on. And you have organizations like MHI that are very, very powerful and influential and have a really strong voice. And that's a good thing, because I think that, and that's maybe something we talk about on a future episode is, what are the biggest barriers? Regulation is one of them. What does regulation come from? I mean, just in general, housing regulations can take up, anywhere from 20 to as high in some markets of 40% of the cost of a house. That's insane. So
yeah.
we already know there's housing regulation that creates an issue, but then you have regulation that prohibits manufactured and similar styles of housing. How do we change the hearts and mind of people there? And I think we're finally starting to see that. But I think it's amazing if we can get our state, local, and federal governments to take action on it. Why can't we get the realtor community, the lending community, the building community to start looking at this? And I think we can. It's just, I mean, that's what I would love to hear. I think this would be a fun conversation. It might be a little controversial, but have have a realtor and a manufactured home salesperson. I feel like this is the start of a joke. Realtor and a manufactured home
Walk into
salesperson
a
walking in a bar.
bar.
But I think getting those two together and talking about it and have a very transparent conversation. Here's the realtors control, substantial majority of the market. They're the experts in selling all types of products. Why isn't there more realtor penetration with the manufactured home world? And I think it's part of that goes, similar to home builders. Home builders and realtors don't always get along. Like I kind of look at manufactured as similar to the home building side. How do we get those two to work together? And I know I can see a slight grin there because that's going to be a challenging conversation. But don't you think it's an important one?
You know what? I
I
think that
mean,
would be a fantastic conversation to have.
I think we should make that happen.
We need to, and look, realtors out there, I know you've heard me say things about you. Look, it's all in good
Well,
fun, right?
but I think a lot of that comes from, there's a stigma about lenders and realtors and all of that. So how do, if we're going to say destigmatize manufactured housing, then it's incumbent upon us to realize that yeah, there's misconceptions and about I mean, realtors, again, they represent majority of the buying population out there, rightfully so.
Yeah.
So how do we get if they represent that much of the buying population out there? I would think that there should be a tremendous effort to get that community, the realtor community, which is massive, um, better connected to the manufactured home industry. And I don't know what the answer is other than education, but I would love to have that conversation and see. And maybe we don't even have to have a realtor in a manufactured home. I mean, it'd be fun, but I think at the very least, let's get a realtor on here and let's
Yeah,
have a
no,
real
we definitely
conversation.
will. But I think it'll help having both on at some point. But I do think we need to have a conversation with realtor separate, just like we are going to have this conversation with this other gentleman on the site build home.
Yeah, yeah.
Because here's the one thing, right? Realtors have more influence. I will give that.
Tremendous influence.
They have more influence than what myself as a manufactured home sales consultant will have, because it's all a matter of trust, right? It's what's more normalized. And I agree, man. If we can get the realtor population, if we get the realtors out there to understand us and the product better, and they can
Yeah.
understand that it's not second class to anything. It's just another option. I think we're
Yeah,
going
that's a
to
good
be able
point.
to help more people along the way. So I agree 1,000
Let's make
percent.
that let's make that happen. Start
Yeah,
let's
we
start
need
reaching
to.
out
We
to. I know
will.
you've got a lot of realtor connections. I do as well, and
Yes.
there's some that I think very very highly of. Let's work on that for the next couple of weeks for sure.
Yeah, man. So affordable out the door, right? We're still going to use the term. It is what it is.
It's gonna
It's lower
happen.
price per square foot.
It's gonna
It's lower
happen.
price
Yeah.
per square foot,
Yeah.
which inevitably means it's more affordable. But understand what we're talking about is our product is an attainable product for those
Correct.
masses,
Correct.
that missing
Correct.
middle that Brian described, that can't buy right now,
Yeah, it's
that
all about
needs
the
this
AMI,
product.
and it doesn't mean that the affordable space is any less important. Huge amount of importance there. I think I told you I did in fact, Natalie and I, who I mentioned earlier, we did a series on homelessness and the causes and all of that kind of stuff and the way out. And a lot of times it is, affordable subsidized housing. It's incredibly important work that needs to be done. I mean,
Yeah.
that part of the population is dramatically needing of good options. But where you and I can have the most impact is on that attainable range. And those are people that still want the dream of home ownership. It is very alive and well. It's just out of reach. And
Yeah.
and
Yeah.
how do we bridge that gap? And I think that's by um, you know, sharing what this attainable housing means, sharing what the opportunity is. That way, we get builders, developers, community operators, salespeople, realtors. We get them going, hey, this is a big buying population there. Maybe I should
Yes,
give it a little
sir.
more attention. So I'm
Yeah, man.
glad we talked about it.
Les, that's it. I'm right there with you. I'm excited about it, and I'm glad we did as well. Brian, man, I appreciate you being here with us as
Yeah,
always. I appreciate the time with you, man, and I think we're making headway and really making a
great.
difference. And we're going to continue doing this. Well, next week, black shirts. No, I'm kidding. So
No, I love that we can literally, have a guest that couldn't show up last minute and just completely change and say, hey, you know what, we're just gonna have a conversation. So I
that's
appreciate
right.
that.
It's great, man. Well, folks, appreciate you being with us. Don't forget, subscribe, hit the like button, get on the notifications. But more importantly, share this episode with anybody
Yep.
and everybody that you know. They don't have to be in the manufactured home space. This is an American product. This is for the masses, and we've got to get the word out.
Good
So
point.
anything, and just like we mentioned at the beginning, if you don't agree, that's okay too. Put a
Yep.
comment in there. Let's have a discussion about that. Maybe we'll bring you on if you make a good point. All right. You guys have a great day. Brian, thanks, man. We'll be talking soon.
Cesar,
All right, go
appreciate you.
handle your calls. I know you're a busy man.
All
You
right.
folks take
Thanks,
care.
sir.
We'll see you next week.